I opened the door and nearly stepped on what I thought was a dead animal. My brain didn't even register what it was at first. Just a wet, dirt-covered lump lying right on my doorstep. It wasn't moving. I stood there in the doorway holding my coffee, completely frozen. Then it twitched, and my heart dropped into my stomach. I set the cup down on the floorboards and knelt slowly, trying not to startle it, though it looked far beyond being startled. When I got closer, I saw its tiny paws, the barely rising chest, and the deep red mark near its neck. It was a bear cub, a goddamn bear cub. I looked around instinctively, half expecting its mother to come crashing through the woods to maul me. Nothing. Just morning fog and the same silence I'd been living in for the past 8 months. I should have called someone. A vet. Animal control. Anyone. But I didn't. I picked it up. It didn't resist. I could feel its bones through the soaked fur. It was barely breathing. I wrapped it in my flannel overshirt and brought it inside. I hadn't touched another living thing in months. My name's Adam. I moved out here last fall, to the edge of nowhere, because everything in my life had collapsed. My wife and I split. My daughter barely spoke to me. I lost my job teaching after 20 years. I came here to be alone, to not be responsible for anything. And now I had a half-dead bear cub in my kitchen. I turned on the space heater, cleared off the table, and laid the cub down gently. Its breathing was shallow and uneven. I had no idea what I was doing, but I couldn't just watch it die. I heated up some milk, almond, the only thing I had, and tried feeding it with a syringe I had from when my dog was alive. The cub didn't respond at first. I rubbed its back gently, the way I remember doing for my daughter when she was a baby. After a minute, its tongue moved. A little. The relief hit me harder than I expected. I nearly cried right there on the kitchen floor. Not because I saved it, because something responded to me. Because something in this damn world still needed something from me. I spent the rest of the day by its side. I didn't leave the house. I didn't shower. I didn't check my phone. I just kept watching it. Adjusting the blankets, changing the water, Googling things like, how to save an injured wild bear. Most of the answers were, don't. Call a professional. But it was already here. It was already mine. When the sun went down, I still hadn't figured out what to do. I barely noticed it got dark. I was too busy watching its chest rise and fall. Still shallow. Still fighting. I didn't know if it would survive the night. But I knew one thing. If it died, it wasn't going to die alone. I didn't sleep that night. I pulled the recliner next to the kitchen table and dozed off in 5-minute intervals, waking up every time the cub made a sound or didn't. Around 3 in the morning, I was sure it had stopped breathing. I leaned in, panicking, only to hear a faint wheeze. Still fighting. By morning, the milk was gone. That gave me hope, but it was clear I was in way over my head. There's no instruction manual for rescuing a wild animal, especially not a bear. Not in a place like this. I called the closest veterinary clinic, about 30 miles away. A young voice picked up. I explained the situation as clearly as I could. You have a what? She asked. A bear cub. Small. Hurt. I think it's maybe a few months old. It's weak but alive. There was a long pause. Sir, we're not licensed for wildlife. You'll have to contact the Department of Environmental Protection. Or Animal Control. They'll put it down. They might. It depends. But we can't help you. She gave me a number. I didn't write it down. Instead, I searched online for wildlife rehab centers. Closest one was over 2 hours away. I called. No one answered. I called again. Still nothing. I stared at the cub, barely moving under a blanket, and something in me locked into place. I wasn't going to wait around for someone else to decide whether it deserved to live. I called a friend I hadn't spoken to in a year. His name was Luke. We used to go hiking together before life happened. He answered on the second ring. Adam? You all right? Not exactly. I found a bear cub on my porch yesterday. It's injured. I don't know what I'm doing. You still know people at that wildlife rescue place near Pinebrook. You serious? Jesus. Yeah, I know a guy, Eli. He's not officially anything, but he's helped rehab animals before. Want me to call him? Please. Luke called back 10 minutes later. Eli says he'll talk to you. He's weird, but he knows his stuff. I'll text you his number. I called immediately. Eli's voice was gruff and short. You feeding it? Yes, almond milk. It was all I had. Not ideal, but better than nothing. You got raw honey? No. Get some. Add it to warm water. Use a syringe. Keep it hydrated. Keep it warm. Don't touch its face too much. Don't name it. Don't act like it's yours. Understood. Also, if it starts to cry, leave the room. That's a reflex. It thinks it's calling its mom. My chest clenched. I wrote everything down. Got in the truck and drove to the tiny market 10 miles down the road. Bought raw honey, blankets, distilled water. The clerk gave me a look, but didn't ask. Back home, I followed Eli's instructions exactly. Every movement was careful, measured. The cub drank the honey water slowly. Its eyes flickered. I thought maybe it looked at me. That night, I finally named him. Not out loud, just in my head. Charlie. 3 days in, Charlie opened his eyes. Not for long, just a blink, maybe 2. But I saw it. Brown, cloudy, unsure, but alive. That same morning, Luke showed up. I hadn't asked him to. He brought someone with him, a tall, thin guy with a goatee and a tattered hoodie. "This is Josh," Luke said. "He used to be a vet tech. He owes me." Josh didn't waste time. He washed his hands, crouched beside Charlie, and began inspecting him with practiced hands. "Male," he said. "Young. Malnourished. Wound looks like a bite. Probably another animal. Infection's bad, but not hopeless." He pulled out a small kit from his backpack, gloves, gauze, antiseptic. He worked quietly while I held my breath. Charlie whimpered once. Josh stopped, looked at me. "That sound means pain. It's good he's reacting." It was the first time someone said something that didn't feel like a warning. When he finished, Josh stood up, wiped his hands and said, "He's lucky you found him. And you're lucky too. Most people would have let him die." Luke nudged me. "He means you've officially lost your mind." We all laughed, but it was a weird laugh, relief mixed with fear. Josh gave me a schedule for cleaning the wound, dosed some antibiotics into honey water, and reminded me again, no names, no attachment. Too late. That night, Charlie stood up for the first time. Just for a few seconds. He wobbled, his legs trembled, and he collapsed back into the blanket. But he tried. I sat across from him on the floor, holding a mug of cold tea, and something cracked open in me. I hadn't felt anything that close to hope in years. I thought I was done with that feeling. Josh came back 2 days later, brought more supplies, said the wound looked better, less red, less angry. "Still touch and go," he said. "If he makes it through the next week, it'll be a miracle." A miracle. I never believed in miracles. I believed in showing up, in doing the work. But the way Charlie blinked at me now, like he knew who I was, it shook something loose. I called Eli just to update him. He didn't say much. Just, "Don't let your guard down. Wild is wild." But I'd already let it down. I was in too deep. I rearranged the living room to make space. I moved the couch, rolled up the rug, patted the corners. I put up a little baby gate across the hallway. Not that Charlie could walk that far yet. But I needed to prepare. Not just for him. For me. Every morning I woke up and checked if he was still breathing. Every night I fell asleep to the sound of his soft snoring. He was getting stronger. And so was I. It wasn't just his fight anymore. It was ours. I should have known it wouldn't stay quiet for long. It started with a knock. Not on the front door, but on my truck window parked outside the supply store in town. I rolled it down halfway. It was Ruth, the owner of the small bakery down the road. She leaned in, arms crossed, eyes hard. "You keeping a bear in your house, Adam?" I froze. "Excuse me? Don't play dumb. Pete saw something in your window last night. Said it looked like a dog. But not a dog." I stayed silent. Ruth straightened up. "You need to be careful. People around here don't like surprises." By the time I got home, the damage was done. 2 cars slowed down in front of my driveway. One even stopped for a full minute before moving on. That night, I shut the blinds and kept the lights off. Charlie was asleep in the corner, curled in his blanket pile, breathing steady. But my own heartbeat didn't slow down for hours. The next day, the village elder, or as people called him, the mayor, came by. His real name's Walter, 70-something, tall as a tree, and twice as stubborn. He knocked hard. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. He didn't waste time. "You got something wild living in there?" "Why?" "Because this isn't a zoo, Adam. It's a village. We got kids, pets, livestock. Bears don't belong near homes." "It's not a bear. It's a cub. Injured. He was dying." He gave me a long, cold stare. "Still a bear. Still dangerous. They grow up." I could feel my teeth clench. "I'm not keeping him forever. I'm just helping him survive." You think the people here care about your good intentions? You think they'll wait until that thing's bigger and something bad happens? He's not hurting anyone. Walter stepped closer. Look, I'm not your enemy, but I'm telling you, this spreads and someone will call the county. Or worse, handle it. Soon. He walked off without another word. I stood there, fists in my pockets, watching his back disappear down the path. Then I turned and looked at the house. My quiet. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights low, watching Charlie breathe. He looked peaceful, safe, like the world outside didn't matter. But it did. In the morning, I got a message from Luke. Heard about Walter. You good? I didn't answer. I just stared out the window, then down at Charlie. I had to find a way forward. Because if people were already choosing sides, some wanting to help, others wanting to burn it all down, then I needed to be ready to fight for him. Or let him go.
If you love stories about wildlife rescue, click the subscribe button below. Here's how the button looks on different devices. Every subscription helps spread these stories and raise awareness. The more people know, the more animals get the help they need. And remember, subscribing is completely free. Click subscribe now and join us in protecting wildlife.
Charlie was getting stronger. That was the good news. The bad news? He was starting to get curious. About everything. My boots, the firewood stack, the edge of the porch. He wanted to climb, sniff, paw, chew. It was like having a toddler, except this one had claws. I had to start thinking ahead. Keeping him hidden forever wasn't possible. Walter's warning still rang in my ears. So did the look on Ruth's face. Fear turns into action real fast around here. So I did the only thing that made sense. I started preparing him to leave. Every morning, after feeding him, I carried Charlie out behind the house where the tree line started. There was a small clearing with tall grass and a few stumps. A place I used to sit and drink coffee when I still believed in peace and quiet. That became our training ground. At first, he stuck close to me, his little legs wobbling as he followed. But by the third day, he started to explore. He chased bugs, climbed over logs, sniffed every damn leaf like it was a new discovery. I kept my distance, only stepping in when he got too close to a thorn bush or tried to eat a mushroom. He was clumsy, but determined. I brought out small bits of raw fish and buried them under leaves, made him find them by scent, took him farther from the house each day, taught him to flinch at loud noises, made rustling sounds in the bushes to trigger his instincts. It felt wrong sometimes, teaching him to be afraid, but I knew he'd need it. Luke called to check in. You turning into a forest dad? I think I've passed that. I'm a full-on wilderness coach now. He laughed. How's he doing? Better than me. There was a pause. You okay? I will be. I didn't tell him that I'd started sleeping on the floor near Charlie again, that I'd stopped checking the news, that I hadn't spoken to my daughter in months but thought about calling her every day. Charlie gave me something to do, yes, but more than that, he gave me a reason to stay connected, to be careful, to get up in the morning. One afternoon, after a longer session in the woods, Charlie curled up beside a log and fell asleep under the sun. I sat nearby, watching the trees sway. For the first time, I noticed the way the light hit the leaves, the way the breeze sounded like breathing. I used to love moments like that. Somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing. Charlie woke up, yawned like a lion, and trotted over to me. He rested his head on my shoe, just for a second. Then he wandered off again. He was learning to live without me, and I was learning how to let him. They came at night. No warning. Just headlights through the trees and the crunch of tires on gravel. I was in the kitchen washing a pan when I saw them. 2 trucks, county logos on the doors, pulling up slow like they knew what they were about to find. I turned off the water and walked to the window. 1 truck door opened. A man stepped out, uniform, clipboard, flashlight. Another guy stayed behind the wheel, engine still running. Charlie was asleep in the back room. I didn't move. There was a knock. Firm. Official. Mr. Walker? I didn't answer. We received a report about a wild animal being housed here. We need to take a look. I opened the door halfway. You got a warrant? We have jurisdiction over wildlife violations. That's enough. Behind him, the second guy had stepped out too. He carried a tranquilizer rifle. That's when my pulse spiked. You're not taking him, I said. The first guy sighed. Sir, we don't want trouble. But this isn't a petting zoo. This animal is not safe. I shut the door and ran. I didn't have a plan. I just moved, grabbed my backpack already half-packed with supplies, threw in a flashlight, water, protein bars, scooped up Charlie. He whimpered, confused, and slipped out the back door. The woods were dark, but I knew them. Every stump, every bend in the trail. I ran until I couldn't hear the voices anymore, just the wind and my own heartbeat. We made it to the old shed I used when I first moved here. No one else knew about it. Inside, musty air, a rusted cot, a lantern that barely worked. I laid Charlie down and tried to catch my breath. He looked up at me with wide, scared eyes. I whispered, "It's okay. I got you." Outside, I heard nothing, but I knew they'd be back. I stayed awake all night, listening, holding my breath at every snap of a branch. My phone buzzed once. "Luke. Dude, what the hell is going on? Ruth says the county came to your place." I texted back, "We're fine. Don't come." By morning, the adrenaline wore off. Charlie was still asleep, curled in a ball. I looked at him and realized something awful. They weren't wrong. He wasn't safe. Not for them. Not for me. Not forever. But they didn't understand what this was. This wasn't some act of rebellion. It wasn't pride. It was care. Real care. The kind that stays up all night. That runs into the woods. That holds its breath for something else's heartbeat. I stepped outside into the light. The world looked different. Quieter. More final. Soon I'd have to make a choice. But not yet. We stayed in the shed for 5 days. It wasn't built for that. No running water. Barely any light. A roof that creaked with every gust. But it was ours for now. I hung up a tarp across the door to keep out the cold and used my jacket to patch a hole in the wall. Charlie adjusted faster than I did. He made a little nest from old blankets and leaves I brought in, and every day he explored a bit farther. I followed him with a flashlight, never letting him out of sight. Food was running low. I rationed my bars, gave Charlie what fish I could find in the stream nearby. He didn't complain, just looked at me like he trusted I had a plan. I didn't. At night, I'd sit just outside the shed, watching the trees, listening, waiting. I kept thinking she'd come. His mother. I don't know why. Maybe I believed some wild instinct would guide her back. That she'd sense her cub was alive. That she'd appear through the trees like some silent miracle. But she never came. On the third night, I heard a howl. Not a bear, something else, and Charlie whimpered in his sleep. I moved closer, placing my hand gently on his back. He calmed. I didn't. By the 5th day, something in me started to shift. I watched Charlie try to climb a tree. He got halfway up before tumbling down into the brush. He didn't cry. He just tried again. And again. He didn't need me the way he used to. That was the point, right? I sat on a log, drinking the last of my water, and stared at the sky. Birds moved overhead in silence. The sun was soft through the branches. Charlie came over, sniffed my knee, and then curled up next to my boot. I stroked his fur once. "You can't stay with me," I said. He didn't move. The next morning, I led him to the far edge of the forest, a place I'd scouted once, where there was fresh water, fallen logs, shade, space. No humans. I set down his blanket, a small piece of fish. Then I knelt. "This is your home now." He looked at me, tilted his head, then walked a few steps toward the stream. I didn't follow. I just stood there watching him sniff, paw the dirt, then lie down in the grass. I waited. 1 minute, 2. He didn't look back. I turned and walked away. Every bone in me screamed to go back, to scoop him up, to undo it. But I didn't, because sometimes love means stepping back, even when it breaks you. I didn't go straight home. After I left Charlie in the clearing, I walked aimlessly through the woods for hours. I don't remember most of it. My feet just moved. My head was a mess. By the time I got back to the cabin, the sun was low. The place looked smaller, quieter, empty. Inside, everything was just as I left it. Blankets on the floor, bowls near the stove, scratch marks on the doorframe. I sat down on the couch and listened. Nothing. The silence wasn't new, but it felt different now. Heavier. Not lonely, just waiting. I stayed like that for a long time. Hours, maybe. No music. No phone. Just the sound of the trees outside. Then I started cleaning. Not in a hurry. Just steady. I folded the blankets, washed the bowls, moved the furniture back into place. I swept up the fur from the corners. Wiped the muddy prints off the floor. At some point, I caught myself humming. I made coffee the next morning. Real coffee. Not instant. sat on the porch and watched the sky shift from gray to gold. It was the same as always, and not at all. Luke called. I didn't answer. I wrote a note instead. Just a sentence. He's free. I'm okay. A week passed. Then two. No sign of Charlie. I'd go out walking sometimes, mostly early in the morning or just before dusk. I'd pass by the clearing but never step in. I left it alone. It wasn't mine anymore. One morning, I found something by the edge of the trail. A small pile of leaves, oddly arranged, like something had nested there. Beside it, a half-eaten fish. Fresh. I didn't touch it, just smiled. A month later, I started fixing the fence. Then I built a garden bed. Then I called my daughter. We talked for 6 minutes. I cried after. Sometimes late at night, I swear I can hear him. Just for a second, a rustle, a low grunt, a breath. Probably nothing, but maybe not. And I don't need to know, because what matters is this. I thought I was the one keeping him alive, the one saving something wild. But now I see it clearer. He's the one who pulled me out of the dark. He reminded me how to care, how to try, how to show up, even when it hurts. He gave me something I didn't know I still had in me. And when the time came, he let go. So now I live different. I listen more. I move slower. I look up at the sky in the morning and let the air fill my lungs like I'm lucky to have another breath. Because I am. Because sometimes saving something isn't about being strong. Sometimes it's just about being there, even for a little while.